Hi, everyone. This is CricketSong with Uner Wisdom, and you're watching another episode of Wyrds, Witches, Witchcraft. Tonight, as I said last week, I am not here with my co-host. Obsidian Fire is not with us tonight because in France, they have yet to do the daylight savings time, and they haven't sprung forward yet. So it's a little bit too early for her in France. But I have a guest with us here tonight, you and I. It's Bettina from the Queen's Grove.
Yeah. So hello, I am Bettina. I run a little metaphysical shop called the Queen's Grove. I do Reiki and crystal healing, and I have a YouTube channel, the Queen's Metaphysical Community, where I discuss related topics about paganism and the lifestyle and things like that.
Yes, and she's been on the show before. So if you haven't watched past episodes of Wyrds, Witches, Witchcraft, I encourage you to go back. And I can't remember exactly what topics we discussed. I can't remember, but I know you've been on before.
Yeah.
Yeah. So check it out. Hey, Shadow. Hey, wah. I don't know. Sometimes the names are like crazy. Welcome. Okay, so tonight we're talking about the witch's relationship with other psychics, mediums, kind of like the whole, I don't even know how we want to categorize it tonight for everyone.
I would say intuitive workers.
Yeah, people who do like intuitive readings.
Yeah. Folks, clair senses, psychic mediums. So
yeah, that whole big category, because it's a huge category. And we're going to talk about specifically, I linked, there's a link in the information section that Bettina did on charlatans. Oh man, I just typed it out. You didn't say fake, but what did you said? Charlatans, psychics, charlatans, and amateurs.
Yeah.
Yes. So, and actually, this whole thing, also her topic, her video. I did a blog post, and I have a video coming out on Sunday that kind of incorporates this topic too. And there was a blog post that I had read from Scarlet Moon Magic. Nico had posted on his Facebook that I shared, that Bettina then commented on my Facebook page about this whole kind of like this kind of broad topic about, you know, who should everyone read cards? Should everyone jump into this sort of psychic field of giving readings to other people professionally? And not only professionally, but just in general. So where did you want to start with this topic? Because there's a lot we could cover.
Yeah, I don't even know where you'd start with it. I don't honestly know where to start. So I'll at least start out where I got the idea. So being that I do work in the metaphysical field, I am not a reader myself. I'm learning Ogham, how to read Ogham staves, and I have tarot deck, and I do pendulum dowsings, and I have witch's runes, so like I'm familiar with it. But when I do festivals and fairs, I don't personally read. So what'll happen is, like, we'll go to a festival, and me and my family will, at the end, we'll want to like exchange services, and like we'll have a reading or whatever by one of my colleagues. So I'm surrounded by readers all the time. And occasionally, not that I distrust my colleagues, I very much trust them, and I think they're all the real deal, just from what I know of them. But like, I'll occasionally think like, there's a new person at this festival, or here's somebody I've never met before. I wonder what their story is. Or I'll hear a story about somebody who didn't have that great a reading. Or so that's kind of where I got the thought in my head's like, is there even a way, like, how are professional psychics, mediums, intuitives, are they vetted? Like, I have a few friends who do have some kind of licensure, but I'm thinking, like, is there a vetting process, or how do we, the consumer, know who the real deal is? Who can we trust? And even as a metaphysical professional, kind of, so to speak, I don't even know the answer to that question.
Yeah, I know. I mean, because I'm a reader. I read tarot. I do crystal ball. I do witch's runes too. I like that. I do scrying, but professionally, tarot is my go-to. And you're a Reiki master, right?
Yes, I am.
Right. So am I. So, I mean, even just separate from that, even when you're just doing Reiki on someone, you can get messages from them, right?
Oh,
I mean, I have, I'm sure you have too. And I've had Reiki done by other people, and they get messages from spirit realm. But I don't even know if there's an actual, I mean, you can. I mean, everybody can go take a tarot course and be licensed.
Right.
You can take an oracle card course and be licensed. But does that even mean, what does that even, I mean, that doesn't even guarantee that that person is even a qualified, I guess.
Right.
Just because you're professional doesn't mean you're qualified.
Right.
You know?
It just means you learned how to do the reading. You learned what the cards mean. And I guess I would go so far to say that I think that everyone to some extent has at least the ability somewhere within them to be able to, let me rephrase. I feel like almost everyone has the raw capability to have access to some psychic channel within them. I mean, we're all organic human beings. Something must be going on in our brains to give us a connection to the other world or a different, I don't know, dimension, whatever you'd call it. I think we all have that capability to some degree. But I feel like just being able to read a deck of cards isn't necessarily the same thing.
I agree. It's almost like just because you can do it doesn't mean you should be.
Right.
Kind of thing, right? So I agree with you. I think we all are able and should practice reading in some form for ourselves. Whether that's cards, whether that's runes, whether that's scrying, whether that's dream interpretation, whether that's bibliomancy, or whatever you do for yourself. I think that's important, that especially as witches, that we do that. I mean, having that connection with the spirit realm is vital in our craft, in our practice.
Right.
But I don't necessarily feel that every witch, we're going to just say witch, since this is weird, witches, witchcraft, should be reading for others. I think that is where we kind of shift from, you know, I think there's a different skill set. Reading for yourself is one thing. Reading for someone else is similar, but there's a different skill set involved in that, I think.
Yeah, no, I agree.
So I think Corey Bell in the chat said 2 questions for both of you. Do you believe everyone is capable of doing readings? I think we are answered that, just like everyone is capable of singing, but are some naturally better than others?
Naturally better as in naturally better at reading cards, like using a tool, or naturally better as they were just born with their channels open?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess yeah, Corey, if you can, you know, sort of give us context in what you mean by that, because better, I mean, now we're going to, I mean, what one person calls better and another person calls better could be completely different.
Yeah.
I definitely believe that, just as some people have a calling to be a doctor or a calling to be a fireman, some of us have a calling to be a reader. It's almost, you know, in our blood, or really in our blood, depending on what you believe. And I think some people, for whatever reason, may not want to. I think there needs to be a desire to want to do that. And others may not want to do that or share that. Because I mean, it's an intimate connection that you make with someone when you read for them.
Right.
So we were talking before we broadcast about those individuals or those readings we may have paid for or stumbled upon, when we have found that perhaps the person doing the reading I'm trying to think of a way to word this. That's nice. That may
Falsely
be,
advertise themselves?
yeah.
Yeah.
Or yeah, like you or I, the person receiving the reading
Mhm.
gets this feeling or this sense that this person isn't as authentic as they claim to be.
Mhm.
How do you handle that? Or how would you suggest it, as a consumer,
Mhm.
what do we do?
Um, I can't recall, maybe it'll come to me as we talk, but I can't recall a time where I had the questionable reading. I have been the reader, and in that situation, because I knew I was very amateur, I was still learning, and I think I talked about this in the video that I did a few days ago, where I did not want to be seen as the professional psychic medium reader. I was doing runes. I was reading runes. So I wanted to make sure that my customers, it was at like a couple of fairs I did this, they knew that I was just offering the service. It was a brand new service. I advertised it as I'm doing reduced price readings, and you need to know that I am still practicing. You are going to be like my guinea pig. Do you consent to that? So I kind of went out of my way to make sure that everybody coming to me and getting a reading, that they knew that I was still intermediate. I was still learning. That's just the approach I take. I like to be very transparent because I don't want to be that person that, oh, I'm a professional reader, and then I give a bad reading, and now my brand is tainted, and now my professional reputation is tarnished. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I agree. I remember when I started out just reading for friends and family.
Mhm.
Like I would do it, have people come over to the house. I needed practice and I'd practice on them. And
Mhm.
then from there, I went into a flea market
Mhm.
and gave reduced readings again, just starting out, like you said, I was new. I told people I was new. That's why the readings were reduced. And then from there, build up clientele, build up experience. Because I honestly feel whether you're reading cards or runes or crystal ball or whatever you're doing, the reader, I feel, whether you have a natural inclination to read or you seem to have this natural ability to do so, or you're more open than, other people, the exchange between you and the other person, the person you're reading for, learning how to phrase things, learning how to watch the cues in your client. I
Mhm.
phrase something and then I see, the look of fear in the person's eyes. Oh, that was the wrong word. I maybe triggered something in them. Being able to have that interaction with someone, especially when you're doing readings on usually very sensitive subjects.
Mhm.
We need to know how to relay our message with compassion. I
Right.
um there was some other topic points that you made in the video, or were there specific points you wanted to discuss? Because you really brought up some really good points in that video. But were there specific things you wanted to touch upon?
I the one thing I keep coming back to, and it's something I actually don't have an answer to, and it is worth at least discussing, is that we mentioned vetting. We mentioned how to know that the reader or the psychic you're going to is legit. And I guess the next question is, if a person is suspected to not be the real thing, if they are, I'm trying to find the words, if they're suspected to be just constantly giving cold readings, or they're preying on vulnerable people, because you have to imagine when people go to psychic mediums, yeah, they're probably curious, but I'm willing to bet a lot of the clients going are grieving and they're vulnerable and they're looking for any answers. And if the practitioner is able to pick up on body language and deliver the message that they want, now they probably created a repeat customer if they gave the person what they wanted to hear. So in that scenario, I'm wondering, if we've got a charlatan, if we've got a really talented con artist, how do we manage that? You know, I've been Googling, reading stories about sting operations where they bait a person, but I'm like, yeah, but what do you do? Like, once you've determined you've got some proof this person is sketchy, they're doing some unethical things, they're just cold reading, they're not psychic, they're preying on people, taking money. Okay, yeah, but then what?
Yeah, I know. That I think, it's really difficult, and I think it's a really sensitive area because as a community, we don't, at least I wouldn't want to start our own witch hunt
No.
among the witches. You know what I mean? Like going around and pointing fingers. Oh, that one over there, he is a charlatan. That one over there is a complete fake. That one over there, within our own community.
Right. Yeah,
But
you don't want to do that at all.
right. And I think there is a fine line, between calling someone out and then starting this whole, whirlwind of witch hunting within our own community. But I think what I would, instead of sort of calling out the individuals that I might suspect are charlatans, I generally refer people I know who are valuable and who I would go to for a reading. And generally that's what I would say if someone ever were to ask, well, so-and-so, I would not go to that person, but that doesn't mean that person might not be good for someone else either. Right. My husband and I have often had conversations about things like this, not only with readers, but with any kind of energy worker or any kind of spiritual teacher. Just because one person isn't someone I would go to, it doesn't mean that they aren't a fit for someone else.
Right.
Because that idea that there is a teacher for every student kind of thing. Because I've had situations where it wasn't me necessarily that went for a reading, but a student of mine went for a reading to someone we both knew. And they recorded the reading. The person that they went to the reading for said, sure, you can record the reading, not video, but audio, recorded it. And then they played it for me. And when I listened to the reading, the reader basically, they were reading cards, and they would say something like this. Oh, this is the Two of Cups. And this is in the position of, I don't know, your challenge. What does that mean to you? And so my student would say, oh, I think, I don't know, it might mean this. Oh, yes. And then the reader would go from what the student said and sort of gave information in regards to what the student said that the Two of Cups meant to them. Then they would flip the next card and say, oh, the Tower card. What does that mean to you? Right. And then the student would say, well, I don't know. I think maybe. And the reader said, yes, that's exactly what it means. And then would go on. So it was almost as if the reader was doing no reading, was just the student was reading the cards for themselves. It was really strange. And I don't necessarily feel like that was I don't know. That's not a reading I would pay for.
Right. Yeah. And then on that note, when we do festivals, there's always more than one tarot reader. There's always more than one Reiki practitioner. And I think this has come up in conversation with some of the organizers, is that we want to have a few different Reiki practitioners. Yes, I sell jewelry, but a few other people sell jewelry. And that's because everybody has different energies. Everybody has well, yeah, just different energies. So somebody who will come to me for Reiki will keep coming back to me for Reiki. It's because they click with me, they trust me, they like my energy, whereas they may not have that same connection with one of my colleagues. So yeah,
Right.
no, it is valid to say that different practitioners or readers will just have different styles and different energies, and it's just a matter of who you're going to click with. It's like when you go to a therapist, you don't have to go to the first therapist you meet with. They expect you to meet with a few different ones before you find the one that's going to really help you.
Right, right, right. You know, I think you brought up the a point where, you know, you may go to and I think this happens with a lot of gallery readings when you go to a medium and they have a bunch of people in the room
Mm.
and then they stand up and they say, I'm getting a message from
Yeah.
someone with the first letter M.
Mm-hmm.
M. Who, anybody? Mary. I mean, the reading that I heard, the recorded tarot reading, reminded me of that.
Oh,
It
wow.
was almost like, oh yeah, here is a card. I'm not saying the reader was thinking this, but it seemed like, here's a card of 2 of Cups. I have no idea what it means. What do you think it means? Kind of
Yeah.
thing. I'm getting the Mary. Is there anyone with Mary? No. Oh, maybe it's Marianne going once, going twice. No. Oh, it's Michelle. I understand.
Mm-hmm.
I totally understand. And I think you pointed this out too, that sometimes I was going to say frequencies or some spirits come through stronger than others.
Right.
And sometimes you, even like if you ever use a spirit board, you know, sometimes it will spell things inaccurately because of the strength of the frequency that comes through. And it may
Mm-hmm.
not be as clear as we would like it to be.
Mm-hmm.
However, like you pointed out, it shouldn't be that way 100% of the time when you're going
Right.
for a reading with that particular reader.
Right. Yeah, it definitely, it helps to keep in mind that there has to be some room for error, and it's not that it's the psychic's error, it's not the medium's error, it's just how it is. Like we've had circles where we intend, like it's a Samhain ritual or something, we intended on talking to specific people, and I remember a few instances where we were doing table tipping, you and I at UMass.
Yes.
And we'd have some people come in very strong, like my grandmother was rocking that table. But and then there would another person I wanted to speak with, they were not coming through at all. And I could almost feel a tangible resistance. Like they were just like not having it. So if I was a reader in that instance and I've got somebody's like, I want to speak to this person who's passed on, I'm like, okay, I'll try to see if I can connect with them, and then they don't want to come through, that makes it seem perhaps like the psychic just doesn't know what they're doing, when in fact, no, either that spirit is not ready to talk or they just aren't strong enough to forge a connection. And that has happened to me in my group, where either somebody is just not ready to talk or they are not quite strong enough. And I feel like totally valid. It's not the psychic or it's not the practitioner's fault, but that is that margin of error you have to account for. But like I did say, it shouldn't be happening all the time. You should not be having constant vague readings.
Yeah. Oh my God, you made me miss the table tipping. I just got a flash of those, the time. Oh, I missed that now, Bettina. Oh my gosh.
Almost 10 years, almost 10, 8 to 10 years ago.
Yeah. I think that was that the first time I met you? I think it might have been.
It actually was.
That's right. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. That was so long ago. Wow, she's spilling the beans on how we met. No, that's fine. I totally forgot about that. Oh
Yeah.
wow. I'm sitting here in fond memories and so many things that just brought back a whole bunch of stuff too. We can talk later, but I am not going to air some of that shit on this thing either. God. Okay. Let me see. There's a lot of talking going on in chat. I just want to make sure.
Sure.
Oh yeah, someone suggests that maybe being a reader, could that be hereditary? And yeah,
I think so.
Yeah, I agree.
I was talking earlier in Facebook. I just threw some questions out, like, "Hey, I'm looking to get some feedback," because I have a lot of friends who are in the community, and a lot of my friends who are specifically psychic medium to some degree got it from another person in their family. So that came up. That actually was a very frequent response, and that's come up a lot. Like, not necessarily they read tarot or use a tool. That kind of didn't seem relevant, but people who had a natural gift for channeling or something like that, they got it from somebody.
Yeah, I wonder sometimes in those situations, I think, or I don't know, I think sometimes some of us may have someone in our family that had that natural ability, but they were afraid of it, or they would like shy away from it. So it was almost like repressed. And then I think other people may have had, like, I mean, if your mom or your dad or grandma did it and was very open about it, then you might actually have picked up, and maybe she gave you pointers or he gave you pointers on how to cultivate that too. So I almost feel like it's you could have someone who really repressed it and you may not even be aware of it, or they repressed it and you still recognize things about it. Where you can trace it, or someone may be completely open about it too. So I almost feel like it's either one or the other. I don't feel like the people that are in between or would even be in between. I feel like it's almost like a one or the other, like two ends of the spectrum kind of thing.
Yeah. The only other scenario that I can think of would vaguely apply to me, in that I don't know anybody in my family that has a clair sense, so to speak. I do have very raw clair senses, and I think they're raw just because I never learned how to cultivate them. But I think the reason why I grew up able to acknowledge them or understand them at all is because even though nobody in my family had those skills, I grew up in a very open family. The environment I grew up in allowed me to, first of all, I wasn't repressed. I was able to be myself. And if I saw a ghost, I'd be like, Mom, and she'd be like, okay, we'll sleep in another room tonight. Like, you know what I mean? So if I saw something, I could say something and not be like, there's no such thing as ghosts, Bettina. Like, what is that then? So yeah, I think it's also environmental as well.
Yeah.
Like, I think a lot of more children than we might think have those abilities. A lot of them are just taught that it's not real, and that
I agree.
they forget how to do it. I just lucked out in that I had a very open-minded family.
Yeah, I totally agree. Totally agree with you on that. Just trying to see if there's any other questions. I don't see any questions right now. So we talked about, so yeah, I mean, community responsibility. I don't know what that would be. I don't even know if there's a successful way to do that.
Oh, hi, kitty.
I don't know. I mean, I think taking care of our each other is going to be important. And like I said, for me, I think it's just more of referring people to other readers that I would go to, as opposed to bad mouthing readers, because, I think that for me, at least, that's the best. That's how I go about things.
Yeah, no, I agree. And that, I think I mentioned that also in my video, where I don't want to be the shit starter. I don't want to deal with that, because like the story I told you a little while ago is that I don't necessarily have proof. I suspect I don't have proof. I don't want to open up this can of worms. So rather than being very aggressive about it, I can just rather than pointing fingers at this person, I just direct people to the people that I absolutely know are the real deal.
Yeah.
And the other thing I thought of, I don't think I mentioned it in my video, is that we're in a really great position now where we have social media. We have Yelp. We have lots of different ways to share that information. And I was just doing some Googling, just kind of taking mental notes. Like, I've heard of Teresa Caputo and John Edward, but there's so many other famous psychics I've never heard of. There's lots of websites where people can share their negative information. And it's not necessarily attacking the person. It's just like, it's like a little watchdog website where it's like, hey, just in case you were going to give this person your money.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we've got a really great tool in social media. I know it's sometimes doesn't seem that way, but if we use it for good.
Do you have any personal red flags that you might share? Like, if you were going for a reading, if you were going to purchase a reading and you sat down in the chair with someone, and are there red flags that you personally look out for to sort of give you an indication that, well, maybe this person might not necessarily be as authentic or as good as they claim?
I think the story that you told, where the person was kind of asking too many questions and putting it back on the client, that to me is a red flag, because if a person is intuitively reading the cards, they should be able to pick up on the clues that I'm the one asking the question. I don't know. That's why I'm here. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I feel like somebody asking too many questions, maybe getting even a little too personal, because I feel like that kind of opens up into cold reading territory.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that would just be me.
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree, because I think about sometimes, I know for me, when I do readings for someone, if I see a card and I say, I would say for the Two of Cups, an example. So
Yeah.
if I flip it over and I'm not sure how it fits in, I would suggest, I would say, okay, so when I see the Two of Cups, I interpreted it as a meeting of the minds, a coming together of two individuals, or you and a situation, and there's emotions involved. And I would interpret the card, and then if I'm not sure how it would fit in, I would say something like, does this make sense to you? It does. I mean, is this, well, usually I don't have to, but usually the person will be like, no, I exactly know what you're talking about. No, it's okay. You don't have to spend so much time on this. Can we move forward? They usually tell me, kind of thing. So I think that's different than someone fishing for information from a reader. And I would agree, if someone keeps like asking you to do your own reading, I'd be like, what the hell are you doing?
Yeah.
Maybe it's just not working out. Maybe the reader is just having an off day. Maybe they're dealing with their own things, and maybe they shouldn't be reading that day.
Right.
Not necessarily a bad reader, but maybe you're just not connecting. The energy, just the exchange just isn't happening.
And the other thing that's always, I think, important to keep in mind is that if a reading is just flat out wrong and there's no connection, sure, that's valid. But I think there are some circumstances where you've had a reading and it hit on some points that made sense, and then nothing happened that was supposed to have happened. And that's happened to me a couple of times where it's like, yeah, I think the reading was fine and I got some good advice, but it just, nothing seemed to happen the way it was supposed. She told me it would happen. I think we need to, as consumers in the metaphysical community, need to understand that when we get a reading, whether it's tarot or runes or just me sitting down and I'm picking up on energies or whatever, we're only offering one outcome. Where if let me think. If I'm asking about, I would like a forecast for the year, like, we just got a house and new jobs, and I'd like to know what my life's going to be like for the next few months and what do I have to look forward to and all those fun things. if then nothing comes about, well, that psychic or that reader was just crap. But well, no, maybe what happened was I changed something. You know, we're told only one path. Well, I've had readings where I'm like, I don't like where this is going. I'm going to change it because I don't want that. Well, that's why it didn't happen. So I think that's also important to keep in mind.
Oh, I totally agree. It's the whole idea that, you know, the reader is giving you a peek into your future, but you still have complete control of whether that manifests or not.
They're
I
offering
agree.
choice. Like
Yeah.
the one reading I mentioned, actually, no, even before that, this was easily 10 years ago. I had gone through a brutal breakup, and there was cheating involved, and we were still kind of working things out. Maybe we're going to get back together. And so I was like, screw it. I'll just have a reading. I mean, I'm having a girls' day. We're in Salem. Sure. And some of the things she told me were just blowing my mind, how accurate they were with no context. And then some things she said that I'm like, yeah. But like, you have to keep in mind, like, so many, what am I saying? So many things can come about. So she says, oh yeah, you could totally get back with your ex. I could, you know, that can happen. I'm seeing that. And then as time went on, we didn't get back together because I'm like, hell no. So yeah, I found that looking back on it, some of the things that she predicted, they just didn't happen. But at the same time, looking back on it, I didn't want them to
Want that to happen. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So sometimes that is the issue. Sometimes it doesn't seem very accurate, but there's probably a reason, and it's not because the psychic's bad at her job.
Right. Right. Which really goes well with Per Bugaloo says, have you guys, as legitimate readers, ever just one, felt like you did a bad reading, or two, the querent thought you sucked? Laugh out loud. What did you do in either case?
I definitely think I've given some rough readings, but this was at the time where I was still very new, but I still felt really bad about it because I was taking money. And I think if I wasn't taking money, I wouldn't have felt so bad. But I definitely, from the looks on their faces, I could tell that they thought I was trash and I felt so bad. But I did reiterate, like, I'm still practicing, you know, I'm still learning what all this stuff means, but I did feel bad about it. And I think that bad reading was what prompted me to stop offering the readings for a while. Because if one bad reading shook my confidence that much, I shouldn't be reading right now.
Yeah. Yeah. I would agree with that. If I have had the funny story, I've had a couple of people sit down in front of me, and I give a reading, and they sit with their arms crossed and the look on their face, and they sat like that through the whole reading. And they left, and I thought, they're never coming back. But I know what I told them was I interpreted the card as I saw it. Maybe they didn't like what they heard. And I tell people, if you're coming to me hoping to get information that you like, and only the things that you like, then don't come to me, because I'm going to tell you like it is. But those people came back.
Oh.
There was two. There was a woman and a man, two separate times, but they came back. And I remember them calling to make the appointment, not remembering who exactly they were, like the name. But when they came to my door, and I open up the door and they walk in, and I was like, oh, I never thought you'd come back. I thought the reading was terrible. And they sat down and they'd like snicker and say, no, it was exactly right. You know, it was almost, those are the people that make me feel like, oh, okay. So it's the ones that I really feel like were sucky were the ones that actually I felt validated because they returned. Sometimes it's the ones that you think everything's great, that, you know, they are not actually giving you anything, you know, not like, oh, that was really good. Or they're just sort of, they're afraid to tell you it sucked, you know?
Yeah.
Sometimes you can't even tell because, like you said, if you're sitting there being a recipient of a reading, if I'm sitting there going, yeah, I don't know what she's talking about. Yeah, that makes no sense. Yeah, I don't know, whatever. A week goes by, a month goes by, and something clicks, and I'm like, holy shit. She said that. Oh my God. Oh, that's what that means because I'm not looking to, what might unfold in this because I'm so caught up in whatever the situation is.
Right.
If it happens to me, obviously it happens to other people sitting there getting a reading. Do you prefer to know nothing about the client or some context? What do you think?
Now,
as a reader, as a client, someone receiving a reading, do you prefer the reader to give you, I'm getting caught up in my words. Do you prefer to give the reader nothing, or would you like, to give them some context to what you're asking about?
all right. If I'm the reader, I don't necessarily like to know much. I don't. Because I feel like if I know something, at least for me, since I'm still fairly new at this, if I know something, I feel like that muddies the waters for me a little bit. I feel like it gives me some kind of bias. But that might change as I get better at it. I don't know. If I'm getting the reading, I will give just a very brief context of like what the question is I'm asking and why I'm asking it. I don't really give much information at all.
Yeah. For me, I don't like doing very vague readings. So as a reader, I like people to come to me with a very specific situation they want insight into. And I want to know the specific situation. So instead of someone coming to me and say, I want a reading about my job, I prefer someone to say, hey, I'm having this situation. I'm having a problem with my manager, and I feel like they're not valuing me. Can you give me some insight onto what's going on in that situation? I like those situations better, personally.
A person looking for like has a very specific question versus somebody looking for a forecast. Okay, I see.
Yeah. Forecasts are different. Tell me what's going to happen in the next 3 months. Yeah.
But if it's a specific question, yeah, I would prefer more detail because when I'm thinking of it, I had one reading. I was the reader doing a rune spread, and at first the woman didn't really give me much information. She had a very pretty basic question, but as the reading went on, she kept offering me more information, and it almost was as if towards the end I answered her question. It helped her feel a lot better. And almost as if at the end, talking to me about the issue was like very therapeutic for her. So yeah, I guess it depends on the type of reading. Is it a vague forecast or is it a specific question? Because that woman definitely liked what I told her, and she wanted to talk to me about it. It was like a kind of a cathartic moment for her. So
yeah, I think the problem is as a reader, I think many times people who come for readings have specific situations going on that they want information about. And I think sometimes people come in, sit down, and they want you to pull it out of them.
yeah.
And honestly, we can do that as readers. I think we're able to do that, but you're wasting valuable time. And honestly, for me, I tell my clients that I'd rather you give me your specific question that you really want to know about and spend the money getting the detailed information that I can give you, as opposed to making me fish it out of you and waste an hour that you're still going to pay me for on, a half hour of nothing, or just spend a half an hour and pay me a half an hour and get exactly what you're looking for.
Right.
You know, I think now as a person receiving the reading, like I go to a reader, I give them the information that I would like as a reader. So if I'm having an issue about work with the manager, I'm going to go in and say, okay, Bettina, I have this situation at work with this bitch. Her name is Susie. She's my manager. She's treating me like shit. Can you give me some information on what I should do about this, how I should handle it? You know, because I don't want to waste my time either, you know.
Right.
What else are they saying in the chat? No, I prefer to go. Oh, someone prefers to know nothing. Harder to read for friends or family. Is it because you know them so well?
I think so. I think it's much harder to read because first of all, you have a bias. You kind of know what they want to hear. It's easier to give the answer that you all want. You know them so well. I think family and friends are great for practicing and learning, but I think it would be hard for me personally to give like a full bells and whistles reading for like my mom.
I wish I could give one for my mom. Tarot is from the devil.
Oh, no.
I see when I do readings for family and friends, not really. Well, yeah, no, I do readings for my husband and my children and my friends. I let them know that I'm going to tell it like it is. Sometimes they won't ask then because they don't really want to know.
Yeah.
But I think for me, knowing the context. So if, you know, my husband says he wants a reading about his job, I'm going to give him a reading about his job. I don't work with him, so I don't know all the, you know, really little details about it, but I know the broad strokes about what he does. So if something comes up and I know his work, I can put it in context that makes sense as to what's going on. So as long as my family and friends know I'm going to tell them like it is, I don't have a problem, you know.
Yeah.
Again, but you know what I've also noticed, and what I tend to do is because I read cards, when I'm reading cards, they'll ask me a question and I'll say, well, I would say this is your friend, but I'm going to pull cards. And sometimes the cards are totally not what I would have said.
Oh.
So like I'd say, you know, for example, if someone were to say, you know, I met this guy, his name is Jared, and I don't know if I should. We went on a first date, and I don't know if I want to go on a second date with him. I feel like there's something sketchy going on. Can you do a reading for it? And I would say, well, you know, if you feel like there's something sketchy going on, don't go on a second date. But let's pull cards and see what the cards say. Bam, bam, bam. Oh my God, the card says that you should give him a second chance. Yeah, go on a second date because, and then we look at why the cards suggest a second date is in. So, you know, going in knowing that, you know, trying to separate myself from my own advice as to what the cards is can be difficult. I don't read for myself generally. So because of that, but friends and family are a little different.
Yeah. No, that's still kind of tricky for me. And I think as with a few other things, it'll get easier as I just get better at it.
Yeah. Yeah. Practice and really, you know, delving into that, I think helps. I mean, when I was first reading, I would pull cards for myself and like journal about what I thought the cards meant. So that was helpful. But trying to get, you know, insight into my own issues, I find other ways of getting information as opposed to doing readings for myself.
Right.
We have about 10 minutes left. Was there any other points that you wanted specifically to cover tonight on the topic?
Actually, yeah. I was talking to some of my girlfriends about this. And I was like, hey, do you guys have anything like if you were doing this topic, what would you want people to know? And one of the things we talked about was, I think I mentioned like Teresa Caputo, the Long Island medium, and John Edward, and like what's the guy's name? Chris Coffey, I think his name, Chip Coffey. So a lot of those televised shows where you've got the really flamboyant practitioners and readers, we were talking about how over dramatized the shows are, and they're heavily edited to reflect more positive readings and positive experiences. And I think the fascination, at least our cultural fascination with this type of thing, is kind of heavily influenced by these personalities, by these shows. So I think it is important for the curious viewers to keep that in mind. Like, it's a TV show. It's probably partially scripted. There are, plants in the audience, and it's heavily edited, and you have to take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
Not what in real life, that's probably not what a reading is going to look like, whether it's a one-on-one or a gallery reading. It's totally different.
Yeah. The Long Island medium, she rubs me the wrong way anyway.
Yeah, so that's one thing that came up in conversation with my girls the other day. And I thought that was a really good point.
Yeah, that definitely is. They totally are. I generally didn't watch a lot of, I think I watched the Long Island medium once or twice. And again, she rubbed me the wrong way, so I didn't continue watching her. But yeah, if readings really went like that, yeah, I don't know. I don't think I'd ever go for another reading if that's how that ended up, Yeah.
Like, I've seen some of clips of readings that they've done, and like, they're very vague. It's like, oh, I'm getting an M name, but when we have circle here, especially at Silent, when people are like, the phone is ringing off the hook, so to speak, one of my coven mates, she'll channel, and some of the people she channels, I mentioned, I think in my video, she doesn't know who they are. There's no context. She's never met them, never knew anything about them, and what she's able to pull through is intense, like nothing vague. Like, she may not be able to list their name and birth date and social security number, but she can describe what they look like. What clothes are they wearing? What are they doing? Like, one time, like, my grandmother had a cigarette or something like that. She described, like, if she couldn't mimic their voice because of an accent, she was able to describe. And like, her descriptions are so vivid that it's like, I can't see watch a reading from Teresa Caputo, which is so vague, and it seems very much like a cold reading. I can't compare that to what some of my friends and colleagues can do. It's just a totally different thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I feel like when you've had an authentic reading, it's easier to discern which other readings are not so authentic. When you've experienced an authentic reading,
Yeah.
you feel it. And then then you'll have something to compare everything to. Not saying that every reading is going to be exactly like that, but when you know what an authentic reading feels like and sounds like and looks like, then you can sort of figure out the ones that aren't so authentic.
Yeah. And it's really frustrating to know that there are, I don't want to say so many, because like I've only ever really been around New England. I haven't really done much else, but to know that there are a number of amateur practitioners who really shouldn't be practicing yet, or they're really good at cold reading, or they're scam artists. It's really discouraging, because I feel like it cheapens and invalidates the work that we're doing over here. Where we want to help people. I know people who won't take money because they feel like the type of service they're offering is just too personal and special to take money. And they're trying to help people, and over here people are just taking money and preying on bereaved individuals. So it's just frustrating.
It is. But I would point out that not everybody that takes money for readings are inauthentic either.
Oh, no, I didn't that. I'm just saying the intentions.
Yeah.
Yeah, most of my colleagues take money for what they're doing, and that's fine. It's just that you've got people who want to genuinely help people.
Yeah.
And, you know, they don't charge an arm and a leg, and they're very willing to work with their client. And I do have a few friends who just won't take money because it's a moral thing for them. And you're allowed to take money; it's your job. But then you've got people who are too willing to be predatory.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you know what really irks me? There's a woman back in Massachusetts who does the whole bait and switch thing with readings. So, for example, she has a sign in her window that says like psychic readings $5.
Mm-hmm.
So you go in
Mm-hmm.
and you pay your $5 and she does her reading. But then she says that there's either a crack in your aura, or you have a dark shadow in your aura, or there's a, entity lingering attached to your aura, or whatever
Mm-hmm.
she comes up with. And she wants $100 so that she can remove that for you.
That's convenient.
I know, right? Yeah. I've had so many people tell me stories about that one particular person. I'm like, yeah, the neon sign in the window saying psychic readings $5 is what turns me off. I'd never go in there, along with the location of where it is, right on a main area with lots of traffic.
Oh, so, yeah,
she's
yeah.
She's getting tons of people going in there. Again, that predatory thing. They're going in there because some of them may just be curious, and those are the ones that are going to laugh her off and walk away.
Yeah.
But then the people that are concerned, and they're going in because they're worried about whatever, and then she tells them that they have this horrible darkness or whatever, they're going to be afraid.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
I'll get rid of that demon, but it's going to cost you your savings.
Well, and one person told me that they told her they didn't have the money to pay. And she said, well, don't you have friends or family members that you could call and borrow money from?
Oh, my God.
I'm like, really? If you really want to help someone, then help them. I don't know. That really bothers me.
That is bothersome.
But
yeah.
All right, so we have only a couple of minutes, like 2 minutes left. Were there any last minute thoughts you had? Or I'm going to look in the chat, see if there's any last minute questions. Would a person be better if he meditated? I don't know. I don't see anything. Bartering and trade. I love doing that too.
Yeah, that's great. I love it.
Yeah, me too. I guess not. Okay. Next week, I think I'm not even sure what I'm doing next week. Do we have a topic? I can't ask Obsidian because she's not here. Let me take a quick look. I'm not sure if we're actually doing readings next week. That's a possibility. Let me see what we're doing next week. Bettina, we'll have to have you back, most definitely, if you're willing to come back. I love talking to you. I'm glad you decide to show up again. It's just Obsidian and I think we may be talking about moon magic. I'm not sure, but yes, Obsidian and I are doing a show next week. I think it's moon magic, or did we do moon magic? I'm not sure. I think it's scheduled. You go look and take a look-see, but we'll be here next Friday. She will be back because they are doing the daylight savings time Sunday. And Bettina will be back in a few weeks or so. I'll have to schedule a time for you to come back.
Yeah, definitely.
And thank you all for tuning in. Until next week. Blessed be. Love you all. See you next time.